Anne Goobie is head of locations department, and her career in the BC film industry spans almost 30 years and includes productions such as Best in Show, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Star Trek Beyond, and most recently, the Marvel fan favorite, Deadpool 2. Beginning her career as a PA back in 1991, Anne rose through the ranks quickly with her tenacious personality and keen eye for detail, becoming a location manager in just 4 short years. With an incredible ability to solve problems, Anne brings compassionate and strong leadership to every project. Her sense of humor and infamous morale-boosting laugh can be heard echoing throughout the production office on a daily basis. She is a beloved member of Vancouver's film community and continues to be at the forefront of the BC film industry. Anne is also a strong advocate for green initiatives in film, has spoken at the San Diego Comic-Con about the creative side of locations, and is a champion for new members coming into the industry. So welcome, Anne. That was a brilliant introduction, I think. I didn't write it, but it was brilliant. So for now, Anne, I am going to back away and turn everything over to you, and but still sitting here and listening. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So thank you for joining us and giving up part of your Sunday to do it.
You're welcome, no problem. Hi, everyone. I'm Anne Goobie. I'm a location manager in the film industry, as Darlene just said. I guess the big question is, for a lot of you, is what is a location manager? Like, what do we do? So the number one thing that we do is we locate the sites for filming through either file searches or scouting. Once we've picked a location, we negotiate the fees for the location, we put a contract in place, insurance, we talk to the municipality to put our permits into place. And then we get into preparing to go to the location. So what I would like to do is try and sort of break down each of these sections, because each one is kind of their own job all on their own. So the first thing is about finding a location. So how do we go about doing that? Well, we get a script sent to us from the production. We do a breakdown. Usually the production designer, who we work with really, really closely, has already kind of done his own breakdown and figured out what sets might be on stage that we're going to build and what sets might be on location. So I go through the script, I do my own breakdown. Myself and the designer, we have conversations about each set and what those sets look like. What kind of places we need to find to make that work for whatever the scene is in the script. It could be a forest, could be a house, could be an apartment building, could be an office, could be just about anything. You know, or an alien planet like in Star Trek. So sometimes you got to think out of the box. You know, it's not there physically. You've got to think out of the box and maybe go into a location knowing that you have to change a lot of things. So really, it's really script dependent, what's in that script. So once we go through the concepts of what we think all of this is going to look like, then I hire scouts to go out. I'll go scouting myself, and I help guide the scouts on where to go and about what we're looking for. And we also use materials that the art department has produced that are concept materials or illustrations about what the end sets will look like. So that'll give us an idea of space and height and visuals. And also just talking with the designer, you figure out architecturally, what are they looking for? If it's a house, is it modern? Is it historical? Is it a bungalow, 2 stories? So you get down to the nitty-gritty of what the look is supposed to be like. So the scouts go out scouting. Every day they send pictures to me. I go through them. I post to the website for the designer. We sit down together. We go through all these new photographs every day, and we start weeding out things that aren't going to work. We make a short list. A short list to go visit these places, myself and the designer. And we'll go out in the car and we'll go to all these spots and we'll have a look around and we'll figure out if they're going to work for the scene and whether we should bring the director to those locations to have a look. So we basically whittle it down. And then we take the director out to our whittled down spots. And the designer and I talk to him about the location and if it will work. And we walk through the scene to see if it will work. Once it's picked, that's when I have to go to work about negotiating the fee and getting the contract and that kind of stuff into place. Once it's picked, before I do the contract, I always talk to the department heads. Every department's going to have requirements about what they're going to need to do on location for that scene. The construction guys may need to change doors, may have to have the paint department paint. Set deck needs to go in there and de-deck everything and add the character elements for that scene. Furniture, all of that. Lighting and grips may have special requirements that they need for that location. So I try and find out what everybody needs from this location so that I can communicate that to the location owner and make sure they're good, see where they might be uneasy about a few things, and also have conversations with them about what having filming really means if they've never had filming before. And then once they feel comfortable, then we talk about the money, we talk about how many days of filming, how many days to prepare the location, how many days to wrap the location to put it all back together for them. Once all that's into place, of course, I talk to the municipalities, I get the permits in place. We figure out whether we need police to do road lockup. We might be doing some kind of stunt, so we might need ambulance. The locations department takes care of all of that. And of course, when we're filming, we make sure that the crew know what the rules are. We make sure that the neighbors are all informed through our resident letters. We deal with the public, obviously, during filming because we lock up the sets so we don't have public going through our shots. And our role really is just to make sure that everything on the location runs smoothly, garbage is taken care of, the public is taken care of, and the set is taken care of. It's a minutia of that. We have in the locations department under me are assistant location managers. Depending on the size of the show, you might need 2, you might need 3, you might need 4. Usually one ALM is strictly with main units shooting schedule. You might have another ALM that's strictly with second units shooting schedule. And you may have another assistant location manager that all they do is help you prep as the movie is being shot. Because as we're filming a movie, the location manager every day is split into three things they do every day. They are opening a set that we're shooting at, they are prepping a set that we're going to, and they are wrapping a set from where we just left. Now we may be wrapping 3 sets, we may be prepping 5 sets. So in any given day, you've definitely got at least those 3 balls up in the air, and you're constantly dealing with department heads that are coming to you about what's coming down the pipe, things that we're going to be preparing for, that the schedule is going to go to in 2 weeks and 3 weeks or a month. So it's very, and under the assistant location managers on set, you have the production assistants, which are the entry level to the location department. I started off as a production assistant way back in '91. And it's really an opportunity to see what happens on a set and try and understand and learn what all the departments do, because every department has their role to play. And the locations department literally deals with every single department, from the production assistants upward in the department. We are constantly facilitating other departments, things that they need on location. We're facilitating the, the rules in terms of the location for the location owner. And we are also just trying to get the day done. What's the next step? Sorry, I've lost track of whatever. So we've picked the location. I've done the permitting. Filming has happened. Part of that filming, prepping to get to the film location, we also have to book the parking. We have to figure out all the logistics. You know, where are we putting the dressing room trailers in relationship to the location? Do we have to shuttle the crew to the location? Where are we parking the crew? Where are we going to feed them? Are we putting up a tent? We need to bring tables and chairs. So there's a lot of logistical things that we have to do prior to even filming. And then we have to implement it on the day. So once filming is completed, the film crew, they clean up what they've brought to the location for the filming days. We get all the garbage out of there, and we really try and leave the location much better than what it was when we arrived. The film crew goes off the next day to another location that we've done exactly the same thing for, and then the wrap crew comes in. Set deck removes their furniture, we repaint things back, the family comes home, we have cleaners come in, we do the whole cleanup of everything, and I have to oversee that also to make sure that they're all happy. I walk through the location with the owners, and we do the checks to make sure we didn't do any damage to the hardwood floors or anything like that. Once we have the sign off from the owner that everything's good, most studios now ask that we get a location release, which is a releases both parties from the location contract. And it gives a little bit of security to the production company that someone can't come back at them after the fact. So that's another portion of it. So these steps that I just outlined, we have to do that for every single location that's in the movie that has been designated that it's on location. Now that may be, depending on the script, that could be 30 locations, it could be 50, it could be 2, it could be 7. It really depends. Like one of my movies that I had a lot of locations in was the feature film, The A-Team. Kind of a campy take on the TV series. But we were everywhere. We were in a maximum security prison. We were at Cold Lake Air Force Base. We went to Kamloops and made the Mexican desert. We had all kinds of locations in that movie. We made Vancouver look like Baghdad, Germany, Berlin, Frankfurt. What else do we have in there? The Tigris River. I mean, it was crazy. So it's a very, very busy department. The location manager's job is incredibly busy. The number one thing I have to do for producers, of course, is produce a budget. And you're responsible for that budget. And in that budget is location fees, your labor of PAs, your parking, your police, your ambulances, tents, any and everything that we do in locations, I have to budget for. Lots of equipment rentals, so that's why I need people to help me. Once they go to camera, I've lost my main assistant who's gone to main unit. I've lost another one that's gone off to second unit. And then I'm left with a trainee assistant location manager and usually one ALM that is helping me hopscotch ahead of the crew. And helping me wrap what we just came from. The locations department is definitely a team effort. No one person, you don't have good people, it all starts to fall apart really, really fast. And you need to have strong people. And I think the number one thing for being in locations, whether you start off as a production assistant and work your way up to being a location manager, is that you have to really love people. You have to kind of be a people person, a good talker, easily be able to explain sometimes some very complicated scenes that you might be doing in the movie and put it into layman's kind of terms. You need to be a great multitasker because you constantly have so many things going on all at the same time. So you kind of need to be able to really do that juggling act every single day. What else do you need? Good sense of humor is always good. Film is incredibly fluid. You can have that schedule. I'm not sure if who watched the AD talk prior to me, but you can have a schedule in place, and you think you got it all going on. Everybody plans to that schedule. It never runs to plan, ever. There is always changes. Something fluid always happens. An actor gets sick, sets aren't ready, we've got to change the schedule. So that's the other thing. You have to be able to adapt very, very quickly to change. You need to know how to kind of manage people in a good way, because a lot of times the location departments sometimes come off as the police on set, because we have to try and enforce the rules, and sometimes crew are not they're not open to that concept, or they're busy because they're very focused on what they need to get done that day. And so you have to be a little bit of a diplomat to sort of get the message across in a nice way, but in a firm way, because the BC industry is built on being on location. And we've been very, very fortunate over the last 35, 40 years that we have been able to protect our resource of locations so that we can keep going back over and over and over again. And a lot of that has to do with how the location department trains the crew to be respectful. So that's a tough part of the job, and that's something that the production assistants, as an entry-level job, they come face to face with that every day with the crew. And some crew are great and some crew are not great, just like in any other industry, obviously. It's always good to have some life skills behind you. I didn't come into the industry until I was 28 years old. And it was kind of by a fluke through a friend of mine. And so I had worked in other industries. I'd had that sort of experience. I'd worked in offices, so I had that experience of, being on the computer and communicating through letters and that kind of thing. You really need to have excellent writing skills if you're going to move up in the department. Constantly, you're emailing people. I may be asking to help out with writing the residential letters. I may be asking for them to start write an email for me, and then I'll go in there and change it. So that's very important. Good grammar skills. I'm always a good grammar person. You always come off looking much more professional if you have that kind of background. And of course, the computer is key. You need to know Word, obviously. You need to know Excel if you're going to be doing any kind of budgeting. We make maps to go with the call sheet every day, so people have directions on how to get to the location. There's a whole bunch of different programs you can do that through. You need to know how to manipulate a Google map, how to capture a map, how to import it into a mapping program and mark it up. Those are skills you can learn on the way as you get into the industry and start moving up. But it's a really challenging department. But it also has its rewards. It's it has a very lovely creative side at the very, very beginning. And then you're into the logistical puzzle of the schedule and how it's all going to work. And then it's also, you're dealing with, you meet all kinds of people out there in the real world and all kinds of industries, and they're all interesting people. So that's what I found for me. It never gets boring. Every show is a challenge. Every show is different. Every show is not always the same group of people that you're working with. And the fun for me is trying to find these locations, and the creative side I love the most, because it's just challenging. It's brain teaser. It's trying to figure it out. Logistically, I love it also because it all comes together. Seeing it all come together and then have a good product at the end uh, sort of makes it all worthwhile. So I don't know what else to tell you other than, we welcome more people into the industry. It's a little bit of a hard nut to crack to start off. Be persistent. Look at those show lists that are on the websites for the film commissions, either the Vancouver Film Commission's or BC Film Commission's list or the Victoria's list. Send those emails out to location managers. Try and pop into the office if you can, to try and do an in-person. If you get on a set, number one thing, be keen, right? You're given a job, come back and say, hey, what do you want me to do next, right? Never be afraid to ask a question. You're there to learn, and people understand, okay, that this is an entry-level job. You don't know everything yet. And people, even other departments, everyone is very, very helpful. And that's how you learn, keep your ears open, listen to that radio, and if you work hard and people see that you're keen, it's going to get noticed.
Yeah.
You're going to get picked up and you're going to be taken on to the next show with these group of people. And also to get along with the other production assistants, because the ones that have a little bit more experience, those are the ones that are going to say to the ALM, hey, that guy, he's really keen. He's green, but you know what? He's really eager to learn, and he does the good job with the missions that I've given them. So it's all about being noticed, quite frankly. Sometimes you're put in positions that are super, super boring. You don't get switched out, constantly, and you think, oh my God, is this what I'm going to do all day long, is watch cars in a parking lot? And guess what? Yeah, maybe that day that is what you're doing. But don't get discouraged, okay? Because that's the starting point. It's your opportunity as a production assistant to soak all that information in from all of the departments, whether it's camera, props, set tech, whatever the departments are, because maybe locations isn't going to be for you, right? Maybe you don't want to be an AD, or maybe talking to the sound guy, you go, wow, this would be a really cool thing to do. So you have to look at it as it's a way in to discover how it all really works, whether you've come from a film school or whether you don't come from that background at all. Really, so much learning happens on set. I didn't come from film school. I got my degree in communications way back in like 1987, okay? We didn't even have the internet then. I mean, none of the media stuff really was in that program. And so I wasn't in a film background at all. And here I am. How did that happen? I fell into it, worked hard as a production assistant, got noticed, and it was like I could have gone either way, AD or locations, and it was like I didn't want to be a PA anymore, member PA, but I'm just going to take whatever upgrade I get first, and it happened to be an ALM. And as I started doing that job, I realized, this really suits me. It suits my personality. I'm a talker. And it really suited me. And I'm a multitasker from hell, okay? So AD-wise, when I look back, I think, I don't think I would have been great dealing with all of these actors. The other part of my job that I forgot to mention is I also deal with the producers and the production office a lot. So there's a lot of balancing acts going on for a location manager. You have the political side of the show, which is the producers in the studio. You work very closely with the assistant director department, because sometimes locations aren't available on the dates. You schedule things and you have to move things around. And you kind of have to learn the politics of of the upper guys. The producer versus the executive producers, the director's assistant, all of those people you have to accommodate and make sure that they're taken care of, whether it's in the van on surveys, whether it's figuring out lunch for the director. There's a bit of catering to the upper echelon, shall we say. That's part of the job also.
Great.
So,
Wonderful. Well, you have amazing experience to be sharing with our attendees. So thank you for all of that. Hopefully you can stay with us and ask and answer some questions.
sure.
Wonderful. Thanks. Okay. First from Katie. If someone's house or property is used for filming, what happens with the residents? Are they put up in a hotel on their dime, the film's dime, or are they to find their own accommodation while their house or property is being used?
Oh, absolutely. Nothing is on their dime. Absolutely nothing is on their dime. So you would talk about that prior to doing the contract. So depending on, let's pretend it's a family, has 3 kids and a dog and a cat. And so what you would do is you would chat with them and figure out what works best for them. Do they want to go in an Airbnb? Do they want to be in a suite at a hotel downtown? What would they like to do with their animals? Should we make it an animal-friendly accommodation, or would we be paying for a kennel? On top of paying for the accommodation and figuring out where they want to be, we book it. They don't have to do it at all. They just show up and check in. We also provide per diem, per day, per person in the household, so that they have money for food. And that's always part of the deal. You never, ever expect them to pay. Some folks some folks take the money equivalent and decide to go off to Hawaii or take the family on a trip while we're taking over their places. And depending on what you're doing, if you have 4 or 5 days of filming in a house, you may need that house for a month, because you need to empty their furniture, paint, dress the whole thing, film, and then break it all down again. So it just depends. But no, absolutely not. They don't pay for anything.
Okay. And Deborah's asking, how many PAs on a typical show of, say, 25 locations? That's a lot of locations. How many PAs on a show like that?
It's really dependent on the location.
Yeah.
So like say we're at the studio. We're at the studio, depending on the studio, it's anywhere between 4 and 8 people. If we're on location and we're shooting outside and we're downtown and we are doing, let's pretend we're doing a stunt or something, so we have police locking up the roads, we need to lock up the sidewalks and entrances and stuff. Depends on how many blocks. That could be 35 people for that day, just to do that. Yeah. If you're at a house, you probably need maybe 5 people just around the house, but then you need people at base camp, at circus. So typically I would say if it's a really simple location, then you're probably talking 8 to 10. If it's a complicated location, it's going to be way more people.
And what about your specific role? Are you on set on a location when the shoot is happening?
What normally happens, it depends. I show up the first day on location, make sure everything's cool, everybody's happy, and then I got to move on, because I am wrapping what I just, where we just came from. And I'm prepping what we're going to. And we could be going to like 25 more locations ahead in the schedule. And some of those preps and wraps, they all overlap. So on any given day, I could be prepping, 6 locations, shooting at 1 location, and wrapping 4 locations. So, and all of that's got to be covered. So that's why my assistant, who's on set, they are on set the whole day. Yeah. They are my eyes and ears. Any issues come up, they call me. I try and pop back in if I can, but most of the time I cannot spend the entire day on set. If we're off in a far location, like say the interior or Alberta or something like that, then yes, I may be on location the whole day. I may run the splinter set, or second unit while my second unit guys run splinter. It just depends on the show and what's happening.
Maybe can you describe or explain what splinter means?
Splinter is normally you have a main unit, which does all the actor dialogue and action. Second unit will do anything that doesn't involve the main actors. It could be a stunt unit where you're doing all the action stuff, where you don't need the main actors because you can use doubles. A splinter unit is what we call a much, much smaller unit where they go off with, say, B or C camera and do pickup shots. Or they may be on, they may have to pick up green screen things. It's a way for production to stay on schedule, but be able to do more things. So it's adding another camera, basically.
Okay, understood. Carolina is asking, how much does the locations department take up of the overall production budget? I'm assuming that varies from production to production.
Oh, it totally does. The location budget is really based on what is in the script and how many locations you have. So let me give you an example. So Best in Show, very, very small movie in terms of budget. I think they had less than $10 million, okay? And my budget for that was probably, I don't know, like $300,000, $400,000. But then you take a budget for something like Star Trek or X-Men, have a lot of stunts, a lot of people, we're dealing with 600 crew members, basically, with huge units. That budget's running almost $3 million. So it varies, like totally varies.
Yes,
and some locations have very set prices. You can't even negotiate. Like, this is what it is, and that's it. So it really depends on the show.
Understood. Andrew is asking, Anne, can you describe some of the differences in the process for booking a location on private property versus dealing with land or property owned by the government?
Okay. If we were going to do public, I'm not sure if he means public lands or if he means municipal, like City Hall or, the legislature or something like that. In terms of public property, every municipality or the province, they have guidelines that we have to follow, right? Of do's and don'ts. Say it's a provincial park, they definitely got their guidelines. We have to follow those guidelines. They also have time, if you're dealing with the BC government, they can't turn things around super quickly. So you have to allow enough time for the permitting process to make that happen. Private land is way easier because then you're just dealing with the one landowner. You're not dealing with different departments within the provincial government to get done what you need to get done.
Okay. And Lucas is asking, I'm a freelance location assistant currently working in the UK in film and TV, but would love an opportunity to work abroad in US and Canada. My question is, have you ever worked abroad? How would you recommend venturing into something like this? A few friends of mine also worked on Mission Impossible, but over here in London. So do you have any advice to offer working abroad?
I have never worked abroad because as a location manager, it's really hard to get permitted to go and work in the States because they have location people there, right? Yeah. You tend to go with your locals because they know their local environment. But to answer his question, we have a lot of Aussies and Brits that have come to Canada and have gotten into the film industry, especially the Aussies. They're all over the place right now in our industry, and they're awesome. So you can come, and you don't even need to be a permittee with the Directors Guild. You can come, and you can be what we call a helper. So a helper, basically, you're allowed to do that for 30 days, even though a lot of people do it for much longer. And basically, it's a way for you to just come in and be a production assistant and see if you like it. And is this for you or not for you? And if you kind of starting to dig it, then you can decide to become a permittee and go through the permittee program with the Directors Guild of Canada to eventually become a member. Now, obviously, he's got experience there in England, and he would probably get snapped up in a flash because he doesn't. You know, I don't know what those Aussies and the Irishmen and the Brits that come over. I think they come over on a visiting working visa is what I think they do, but I really don't know the legalities of any of that in terms of Canada, right? Federally.
Okay, understood. Now Marley is asking, can you work as a locations PA before being part of the BC DGC logbook program? I read you need to get experience as a helper PA before being eligible for this first step in the membership process.
And she's correct. I mean, that's basically what I said with the other question.
Yeah.
Yes, you can start as a helper and see if you like it. Anyone can become a permittee.
Yeah.
You don't have to have any special anything. If you want to be a permittee, you just got to go through that program. But that's why I recommend to people, be a helper first. Go in there as a helper and you'll still get paid. I can't remember it's not bad actually, but it's a 15-hour day, everybody, just so you know this. Legally, it's a 15-hour day. And if you go in as a helper, you will be a production assistant as a helper, and you will learn what we do on set, locations does on set.
Great.
And like I say, from that point on, if you kind of like it, then apply to be a permittee.
And Grace wants to know favorite location to shoot and why.
Oh my goodness. That's a really hard question. Is she talking about, I guess I just need a more specific.
Yeah, I don't know if she's referring to what type of location.
Because there's just so many of them, right? I mean, I love filming on glaciers and stuff like that. I love doing all that kind of stuff, like just getting out and like helicopters, all of that stuff. Love that stuff. You know, but I've also done, this is why I love my job so much, because you just meet so many crazy people. Like I'm in another movie on Tomorrowland. We filmed in a wheat field that was owned by Hutterites in Alberta, and like the Hutterite colony, right? Learned all about those guys. Fantastic people. So I could say that, but there's so many, right? I loved shooting at the prison. That was just the most crazy experience. And I mean, it was so much work. We had to get the security clearances on everybody. Everybody had to inventory all their gear. I mean, it was painful to set up, but it was just so super cool to be inside this maximum security prison with Liam Neeson and making it happen, right? Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's, it's a tough question. I don't have one favorite.
That's okay. And Deborah is asking, how long is your longest day?
My longest day was as a production assistant, and it was 21 hours.
Wow. Does that still happen much in your experience? And has the industry started to keep closer watch on that kind of thing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously, this is way back. This is when I was production assistant. I mean, not to say that it can't happen, but it's much rarer, shall we say. Okay. Although, the location department can do very, very long hours on set. They're the first people there, right? Because we got to get set up beforehand and makeup show up to do the actors. And so my team on set, like they could start at 4 a.m. and they might not be done till 10, 11 at night.
Long days.
So they can do really, really, the set hours can be incredibly long. Yeah. They don't get overtime until after 15 hours. And I try and mitigate that for my assistants a bit, where, if they've had multiple days like that and they're just exhausted, I'll just take over the tail end of the day for them. I'll just show up and say, hey, you go home and I can wrap this out with the kids and that kind of thing. So we try and balance it out because at a certain point, you just get totally burnt out because you just haven't had enough sleep.
Yeah, understood. Now
Yeah.
we're close to wrapping up. If you don't mind, a few more questions, Anne, are you okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Joseph is asking, are there basic location fee schedules for certain types of properties? How much is budgeted for a middle of the road house property for a week? Let's say Victoria or Vancouver. You've got to take somebody's house in the suburbs for a week. What kind of budget do you look at?
Well, here's the thing, right? It's there's no set there's no set prices. Let's put it that way. It comes down to you offer them by what you're doing there. What are we doing there? I might be doing a horror film and say, hey, I want to splash blood all over the place in your house. Well, you're going to have a different conversation about money, okay, than you are if it's just a Hallmark nice show, right? But I guess in general, for an average house in an average neighborhood, I would probably be offering, $3,000 for the film days and $1,500 for prep and wrap.
Okay.
Plus the accommodation, plus, the per diem and all of that stuff, right? If it's a mansion, totally different story.
Right.
So,
right. Okay. I'm curious if star power helps or hinders your negotiations about the use of a place. If we say Liam Neeson is going to be spending 3 days in your home, does that help you or hurt you?
oh, absolutely helps. Absolutely. I mean, on some movies, I have to, we're not allowed to talk about our movie.
Right.
We have to sign the confidentiality, the NDA thing, and all that stuff. So I always have to have a conversation at the beginning of the movie with producers to say, hey, what can I really tell them? Okay, especially like, the Tom Cruise movie. Let's say Tom Cruise. We were trying to get certain spaces that had never been filmed in before. And so I would go to the producer and say, hey, can I drop Tom's name? Like if I can drop Tom's name. And he would look at me and go, of course you can drop Tom's name because all of that helps. It really does. And Ryan Reynolds, same thing. I mean, Vancouver loves Ryan Reynolds. So all of that helps. And it helps also when you're just going around with your neighborhood letters and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, to just sort of, because they all want to know, well, who's in it? As soon as you can say there's someone with some kind of star power, then it's like, oh my God. So they're all more excited that you're coming, right?
Yeah, I bet.
It is what it is.
And Lucas is asking how and where to apply to become a permittee.
He can go to the Directors Guild of Canada website, dgcbc.com. That's the BC district. And it has all the information in there about how to become a permittee and what steps you need to take. It also explains what being a PA helper is. So you just need to go to the ggcbc.com website and it's all right there.
Okay. And final question before we let you go to enjoy the rest of the day here is from Tom. When filming in a neighborhood, how do you handle other residents not maybe directly affected by filming, but maybe who expect some kind of financial handout? A house, a couple, maybe a few doors away that may be impacted by traffic or parking or something like that. How do you deal with those? Is there compensation offered or?
I really try not to compensate all the neighbors. Yeah. Because let me tell you, it gets really crazy and out of control really fast. Yeah. And you don't have the money for it. You do not have the money for it. Now, here's an example. On Deadpool, we're downtown. We locked up 5 blocks of Hastings Street to run this big truck. Now we had within our closure was a residential tower at the Fairmont Hotel. Okay. Well, I had their person that takes care of the Fairmont, takes care of Shaw Tower, and one other building up on Georgia where I had blocked the road, where he wanted money for their strata because we were filming in the neighborhood. And I said, well, wait a minute, like We didn't block their entrance to get into their underground parkade. They were able to get to their place, right? Well, but the traffic, I go, well, everybody was in traffic. We would have to compensate all of downtown Vancouver
Yeah.
because they got slowed down by an extra 5 minutes to get to their place.
Yeah.
It's just not feasible.
Right.
Now, not to say that I won't do that for some neighbors. I may need to put lights in the neighbor's house next door. What we try and do is spread the love a little bit where, hey, can I use your backyard to put a lunch tent in? Pay you some money for that. Pay
Yes.
another neighbor to put the craft service truck in their driveway. Pay another neighbor. So you try and do it that way and stay away from the whole word of compensate just because we're in the neighborhood.
Right.
That's a slippery slope.
Yes, understood.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind everybody who's tuned in that some of the fees and things that we've been talking about with Anne, they are going to vary from city to city to city to location. So some of the, like Hallmark is shooting around town, they may not have the same budget as the larger production feature films and things like that. So whatever numbers you may have heard, they vary. They're not, there's nothing really set. They will differ from location to location. Is that accurate, Anne?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to the show, right? And what you're trying to accomplish. So I base a lot of my price points, what I start with, based on what am I asking of this location? What am I asking them for?
Right.
And how disruptive is it? Right? So you start at that point and you move on from there. I mean, not to say there's a lot of locations that have set prices like buildings and things like that, and there's no flexibility. It is what it is, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have kept you over. We very much appreciate you taking all the time to answer these questions and sharing your expertise. And I'm sure a lot of notes were taken during this. So thank you very much. We're going to free you up to go and enjoy the rest of the day. So Anne, thanks again. And we look forward to talking to you and maybe seeing you on set one day.
Okay, thanks so much, Darlene. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.